No matter how you feel about modern Rolex, the brand is responsible for many of what are objectively the most iconic and important watch designs of all time, one of them being the GMT Master. Although there is an open debate about what is the best sports model from contemporary Rolex, if I had to pick one current production model, just one, I think this would be it. And in this video, I'm gonna share my 4 reasons why I think the GMT Master II Pepsi on a Jubilee would be my choice. Let's jump in. So I know I made some bold claims in that intro, but I'm gonna give my 4 reasons why. Before I give my 4 reasons though, I do wanna just address the idea that Rolex, I know, has a lot of baggage associated right now. I think people are tend just to get a little bit fatigued at the moment with Rolex and what's going on and how difficult it is to acquire. A couple points here. I don't think I'm the person that perpetuates this as much in this space. I don't cover Rolex that often. I try to cover many different brands. I actually looked at how many videos that I feature Rolex at the beginning of this whole year in 2022. There was one and it was covering the new models, and I also paired that with Tudor, and then I have some alternative videos. So I don't think it's getting into the idea of just covering Rolex all the time. I try not to do that. Also, I will mention, this watch was purchased in the last 8 months from an authorized dealer at retail prices. It's not somebody that's very well known. It's a regular guy who just loves watches, just like everybody watching this. So just keep that in mind. It is still possible. Don't go crazy paying over retail. I just love this watch, and I'd love to be able to talk about it as an isolated idea rather than trying to always talk about the secondary market trading values. My hope is we can just do that for this one video and just admire this watch for, I think, the great watch that it is. The specific reference that I have here though is the GMT Master II, the reference 126710 BLRO on the Jubilee. And finally, before we dig in, if you are in the market for other GMT watches, I do have a definitive list at some of the best options in 2022. We have over 25 different GMT watches on there. But now let's get into my 4 reasons why this GMT Master II might be the best contemporary Rolex sports model. So I have these ranked in almost like ascending order in terms of what I value the most. And I think the 4th one is the biggest one. But the first point here I have is simply going to come down to the history and heritage and just the unmatched history going for the GMT Master. While Rolex wasn't the first with a rotating 24-hour bezel, as this honor actually goes to the Glycine Airman in 1953, Rolex was certainly the watch that put this idea on the map and brought forth the use of an additional 24-hour hand we now commonly refer to as the GMT hand. The story goes that the original GMT Master was developed at the request of Pan American Airlines pilots who needed a watch capable of tracking multiple time zones in the early days of transcontinental business travel. And it quickly took off with professional and military pilots, special operation forces, and anybody that really just needed a sports watch with dual time zone functionality. And while the original GMT Master's hour hand could not be independently set, at least that local hour hand being tied to the hour and minute hands, the GMT Master II unveiled in 1982 allowed for an independently adjustable local hour hand that underlines what we now know as a true GMT and its functionality. With this and the addition of the use of a rotating bezel, the GMT Master II was and is theoretically capable of simultaneously tracking 3 different time zones. In the decades since its introduction, the distinctive red and blue bezel, now affectionately known as Pepsi, has become synonymous with this model family, having been worn by celebrities, heads of states, and a variety of other important and interesting figures. In the arena of sports GMT watches, no one has even come close when it comes to the GMT Master's cultural relevance, importance, and influence on the industry. Now for my second point, we have Reverence to the Past, specifically the original with that reference 6542. Many brands and other Rolex models, including the Daytona, Submariner, and especially the Sea Dweller, have in many respects become different watches compared to their historical ancestors. The GMT Master II has, though, managed to more consistently display the same basic design format through the decades. Taking a look at the modern GMT Master II dial, we have a black central dial surface, simple lume geometric indices in the same shapes, a Mercedes handset with additional red GMT hand, and almost identical dial text. And of course, the simple date window with its trademark Cyclops magnifier. The Pepsi bezel, while now impressively executed in a bicolor ceramic, still follows the same basic color and design format format, dating back to the original while not following the same fate as others, leaning into more of a bling factor at the expense of tradition. Moving over to my next point, we have a masterclass in proportions and fit. Now, this certainly helps further solidify point 2, as a big reason for the GMT Master II's feeling of not forgetting the past is assisted in how it wears like the original vintage dimensions, or at least very close. At 40 millimeters in diameter, 11.9 millimeters thick, and around 48 millimeter lug to lug, the dimensions of this model are, at least for me, near perfect, offering a prominent wearing experience aided by the pop of color coming with the Pepsi bezel, but without ever feeling large, heavy, or overbearing. Finishing is one area where the modern luxurious Rolex feel becomes apparent, with vertical brushing on the case tops offset by polishing on the vertical case flanks and sculpted crown guards, first added to the GMT Master family with the iconic 1675 and 1959. The crown between those guards is one of the triplock variety, a style of crown that is often used in their more aquatic-oriented pieces, such as the Submariner, and is among the best threading that you're going to find in the business for a crown, feeling Loctite when screwed in and offering 100 meters of water resistance in the process. The bracelet preference for the GMT Master II is often debated among collectors, as it just seems mandatory to pick a side, Jubilee or Oyster. But for the Pepsi, to me, there's no question. I think the Jubilee simply feels right on this model, fitting snugly between the 20 millimeter lugs. Now, the Jubilee was first introduced in the 1940s, offering a 5-link design, polished smaller center links and brushed outer links, each shaped in a semicircle format with flat side against the wrist. Yet despite many associating the bracelet with the Datejust, the GMT Master II also has a long history of offering a Jubilee on a few references throughout the mid-20th century, before being reintroduced again to the latest generation in steel in 2018. The shape, coupled with the smaller stature of the individual links, make this bracelet incredibly comfortable to wear, and perhaps the most breathable steel bracelet you're going to find while making the watch wear smaller on the wrist. For decades, hollow end links at the lugs, folded links, and simple folded clasps made Rolex bracelets, including early Jubilee models, a rattly option prone to excessive stretch. But the modern Jubilee is solid everywhere you look, from the end links and throughout the bracelet that tapers from 20 millimeters to 18 millimeters and terminates with an excellent milled clasp. The clasp is not on the level of that of the glide lock system with optimal on-the-fly adjustment. That said, it's still premium in its feel while offering a set of 3 internal points of micro adjustment that requires a spring bar tool to change and then a tool-free folding extension for an additional 5 millimeters or so. However, the number one reason why I believe the GMT Master is probably my pick as the best contemporary Rolex is that it defines the category, and unlike other Rolex models, it doesn't have a true equal peer. So despite the success of models such as the Submariner or the Daytona, there are either a long list of competitors or other models that also contributed as much, if not more, to the watch type in which they represent. Taking a look at the Submariner for an example, although probably the most iconic watch of all time, you also have no shortage of worthy competitors or alternatives, such as the Omega Seamaster 300 or Diver 300, Planet Ocean, Breitling Super Ocean, Tudor Black Bay, Glashütte Original CQ, or the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, a watch that actually beat Rolex to the punch in terms of identifying much of now what is accepted attributes of a dive watch. With the Daytona, it's just as crowded. The Breitling Navitimer, Zenith El Primero chronographs, a movement also with the El Primero used in the Daytona for over a decade, I might add. And of course, the Omega Speedmaster, a watch that predates the Daytona being released in 1957 and certainly contributed to the modern design we now expect from chronographs, especially with its fixed tachometer bezel and the overdone yet untouchable mystique that comes with the contributions to the Apollo program. I believe the other watch from Rolex that is close in defining the aesthetic of a watch genre is the Explorer, but even then, I think there are many that do that style well in the market. In the GMT Master II's case, there simply aren't other luxury sports GMT options that, at least in my opinion, really get anywhere close as being as defining to a complication type or style as this one does. Sure, there are now plenty of other great GMT watches, Omega Planet Ocean GMTs, Grand Seiko's offerings, Glycine Airman, Longines, but let's be real. Rolex owns this style of bicolor 24-hour bezel with an additional GMT hand in the stack, and I don't think it's close. As one final point to drive this home, I want you to close your eyes. Actually close your eyes when I do this. And when I say the type of complication, say the first watch that comes to mind, I say a diver. I'll give you a moment. Just close your eyes, think of this. I assume a wide variety of watches could be jumping up, and although the Submariner might be the most common answer, the landscape is vast, especially at the entry-level end, as there are plenty of good options. Now keep your eyes closed still. How about a chronograph now? Just think about it, what comes first to mind. I would argue it's a toss-up. You could look at the Speedmaster, Daytona, as well as a long list of others that I mentioned earlier. Now close your eyes one final time and tell me what watch you think of when you hear the term GMT. Sure, there might be some contrarian picks to make and saying that there were some other watches that came to mind, but to me, there is simply one, and that is the Rolex GMT Master. But all right, guys, that is my take looking at this Rolex GMT Master II, and I think it's probably my favorite contemporary Rolex when it comes to their sports collection. I usually like the underdogs from Rolex. I like the Explorer 2, the Milgauss, just the Explorer models in general, but this is a watch that has always spoken to me. I think it's a beautiful, timeless design. And like I said, I think that fourth point is really the reason why I think this watch is so special from Rolex. Of course, it stays true to the original, I think, compared to some of the others, but ultimately, I think it's just such a definitive watch for the category in which it represents. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. I know there is some Rolex fatigue out there, but I really just wanted to talk about this watch in a bit more detail. Also, definitely check out TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.